Every week I talk with a different artist about the things they make and their process for making them. And this week on the show we've got a fantastic singer-songwriter, guitarist, rock and roller, Nathan Archer. Nathan is the lead singer and at the moment sole member of a great Colorado Springs band called Rough Age. You should definitely check them out. And an exciting thing for this episode, we've got an exclusive demo version of his song Hangover Cure, which will be coming out on his forthcoming album soonish, whenever he's done mixing and mastering, which he's working on now. We get into that in the episode, so definitely check that out when it becomes available. Follow follow Nathan. Join his email list for Rough Age, and give him a like on Facebook, all that good stuff. As for me, as always, my writing is at mindfulofmadness.com. My comedy album, This Was a Bad Idea, is still on Spotify now and forever, and iTunes, all that good stuff. And again, as always, give the podcast a good old rate, review, and subscribe. You know, we need that stuff to grow, so if you could do that for us, it sure would make a difference. Or just tell a friend you like it, or you listen to it. You know, suggest an episode. This one's a good one. The last one with Casey Fraze and Chris Jordahl about improv is very, very funny. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out. And I feel like that's enough groveling from me, so we're gonna go ahead and listen to Hangover Cure by Rough Age, and then we'll get into the episode. Thanks, guys.
Scarlet women, backslide punks, River City mothers, you extraordinary, sumptuous lush. Had enough. I know your face, I see you everywhere, I see your pain, I oughtn't take it away. Look in my eyes, nothing to hide. You wipe the whiskey soaked tears off your skin on that thighs. Out of sight in the goddamn city, the running makeups are almost pretty, but I got a tonic that'll make you so clean and pure. Sure, by hangover cure. Hush that cry. Better tales, but hey, I've got me surrounded. The angels and demons, a bitter wife, a crying child, all crash the party. I found a potion to make it fade, make it fade. You Moses got to keep a lid on your pounding hell. Can't contain them, but tonight we're gonna drown everything we keep down. Every stick is in. crime. Damn that lie. I pick your poison punch it.
All right, guys. Welcome to Mindful of Madness. With me this week is a really funny guy who's also an amazing musician, really insightful dude. We're doing this over Zoom. I have to warn you. So if the audio gets a little funky, sorry. That's just the way things are now.
I'm just gonna say, like, uncomfortable with praise, imposter syndrome. Shaking my face.
Yeah, it's Nathan Archer, everybody, from Rough Age. Yeah, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. I'm quarantining. That's why we're doing this over Zoom. We may or may not have some Rona in the house. We're not really sure. We're waiting on some test results. Me and my wife. She kind of felt a little funny, but then she felt better, and we're not even sure, man.
Yeah.
So,
well, look, man, it's better safe than sorry. We're getting, there were 200,000 new cases yesterday, I think. So.
Right. And if there's anybody I would like not give a shit about giving the Rona to, I'm just kidding.
It would be me. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but my wife would be super mad.
Yeah.
And your wife would be mad.
My wife would die.
Oh shit.
Yeah, she's kind of immunocompromised. So
hey, I think your wife is a beater. Is that right? Did I hear that from one of your podcasts?
What, that she beats me up?
No, a beater. She might do that too. Like, kind of, I could see it. But she makes jewelry out of beads and stuff that.
Yes. She does make jewelry. Yeah.
So my wife Taryn owns White Rabbit Beads in Old Colorado City.
Oh,
and
cool.
She's been doing she's been beading since she was like a kid and worked there, and then eventually got a loan, bought the store, and she's a perlatrix.
Oh,
that's the word
amazing.
for a seller of beads, a perlatrix.
Perlatrix, I like it.
More you know.
I like it. That's cool. We should get them to hang out sometime. Brittany really likes doing it. It's one of those things where it's like hard to like start a business or learn how to do things. So like, especially the first few months of this Corona thing, she just sat around the house and made hundreds of pieces of jewelry that are just now kind of here.
Yeah. Well, it's better than video games, which is kind of like where I turn. Anything to avoid finishing some mixes or music videos or all the stuff that I have like half done, because there's a pile of that.
Right. Yeah, I played a lot of video games for a while. I did do a lot of writing. That's like the one creative thing I was able to do.
Oh yeah. I saw a bunch of that short story stuff. I haven't checked your short stories in a while.
Well,
not subtle plug, Mindful of Madness.
mindfulofmadness.com, guys. Yeah, I'm really with the new job and everything, I'm really struggling to find a new writing routine. It's a challenge. I wrote something today kind of about, like, I have this whole thing I've been thinking about a lot in the past few months, and I've talked about it on the podcast. You probably heard me talk about it because I know you're one of my few listeners. But I talk about how streaming services don't pay anybody any money, really. So if you want to be a good fan, a good, friend to your friends who have stuff on Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, you should be like playing that shit while you're asleep.
Yeah, so I sort of like would take a different approach if I was asking something of my friends, fans, family, who
Yeah.
wanted to support me. I Where I would go is like, hey, share this link, share this video.
Yeah.
Um, just tell somebody like, hey, this is a great song. Check this out.
Yeah.
Um, that's where I would go because that could lead somewhere else,
Hmm.
and the extra listens are kind of a dead end. I might get a few cents, literally.
Right,
You know what I
right,
mean? Like
right.
if you play it all night, I get like maybe like a buck. That's probably too high, actually. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
it
no,
is, but
you'd probably make about 50 cents. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, what the hell do I need another 50 cents for? Like if everybody that I could get to do it did that, I get like a few bucks. I could almost buy a Happy Meal. Like.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well,
not that I don't want people to stream the music, but what
yeah.
I really want is for somebody to hear it.
Right, right.
You know what I mean? That's why I do it.
Yeah, yeah. I guess I see it as like an extra thing. Like it's like the next step. Like the best thing you can do to support a musician or a comedian, an artist of any kind, is to buy something. And
Oh, totally.
the second best thing you can do is tell a friend and like get someone else invested in the art. And then this is kind of like tertiary, like, look, and I almost look at it as like a punk rock combative thing against a broken system.
Hmm.
It's not even about, it's kind of almost a fuck you to Spotify from my perspective.
Yeah. So I have this whole like quandary about like how much do I care about the money I'm getting with this? And this
Right.
is something you talk about pretty often, I think, on your podcast, which is like this intersection of art and commerce, right?
Yeah.
And what are you trying to get out of it? And I know these are all super open-ended questions, but I'm kind of riffing here.
Yeah.
What are you trying to get out of it? And what are your obligations? What are your professional standards of marketing the stuff you made, right?
Right.
And man, I think it's tricky. Here's a hot take for you. You can put this on the clip, on the provocative clip, if you wanna
That
rogue it
implies I'm
out.
doing any editing ever.
But here's a hot take for you. I think a lot of us that are sort of at an indie level, or you could call it an amateur level, not not talking about people's work, but just like the amount of money they're making
Right,
from stuff.
right.
Um, a lot of us sort of like mix up professional expectations that don't necessarily apply. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like, I think so. Here's my goals. My goals for my music at the level I'm at is I want somebody to hear it first and foremost.
Right.
And I tell people this at a show, like if they're interested in the music, or they come and say, "Hey, good set, that was cool. I like that song," something like that. I'll say, "Hey, do you want a CD?" I don't like try to sell CDs anymore. I haven't for
Right.
a few years. I just hand somebody a CD. If they want to give me something for it, that's great. I really don't care because I made hundreds at a time because that's where the price break is. If you're going to make them at all, you want to make probably a few hundred or a thousand, somewhere in there,
Yeah.
depending.
Yeah, I
But
think I bought 50, but it took me 25 to break even. So
oh yeah.
yeah.
See, I'm not even sure if I broke even yet. I did a
Yeah.
thousand of the one CD I've made of Rough Age before it comes apart, available on Spotify and iTunes
Yeah.
and all the usual shit. Um, and I still have hundreds, but I
Yeah.
also gave a bunch away,
Yeah.
because again, my goal, I know I'm not going to make a lot. I'm not going to make money that is significant compared to uh, any kind of like day job, that you work
Hmm.
at and get paid regularly.
Yeah.
So I can give some of I give one to KRCC. I send one out to some bloggers. I didn't do like a real radio station promotion effort, but I kind of want to next time.
Right.
And I've got this whole idea about doing download codes, and maybe like trying to figure out if I can host it myself, because I'm a software nerd by day, musician sort of by night. And that way maybe I could not print CDs, which nobody listens to anymore. You know,
Right.
I mean the Rough Age CD was 2013, and it was already kind of hey, does anybody actually want like a plastic disc? And now I think it's even more so because now you're starting to see the CD players not be in laptops and
Mhm.
cars anymore. So like it's like if somebody handed me a tape, I literally don't have a way to play it right now. Got a
Right.
new, got a new car stereo.
I
I did pretty
uh
recently.
so my thought on physical media is just that I see it as a people. I would say you might actually have a better chance now than in 2013 selling CDs
Really?
because if only because people have realized they appreciate the tactile experience
Mm.
um of part of it is like the people like supporting indie music. People like supporting indie artists, period. And so when they get something physical, it's not even that they will ever play that CD, it's that they'll put it on their shelf, and every time they see it, they're like, yeah, that's a band I like, or that's a comedian I like, or whatever. And I supported them. I helped pay for their art. It's almost like a kind of a fucked up patronage thing,
Yeah.
and that's
No,
that's
it's not
never.
fucked up at all. I
Yeah,
think that's a great. I think that's a really wholesome transaction. You know,
yeah.
for an
And
artist
what
fan relationship.
it's part of why I have so much vinyl, is because I like the tactile experience of it. I also like the tactile experience of putting a record on the record player, putting the needle down,
Listen to the whole album.
listen to the whole album. I
Yep.
can it helps me focus when I'm writing because I know that there are built-in breaks when I'm gonna get up in 20 minutes and flip the album, listen to the other half, put
Totally.
that away, go get a cookie, put another record on. Now I can write some more, it
Right on. Yeah, I'm definitely an album listener. I do not own a record player. I am in many ways of I'm not hip at all for like
well,
for like musician standards. I don't own a record player. Um, yeah,
well,
I
it
practice too
yeah.
much. I kind of like have this like perfectionist thing that it's like not cool at all. Not
Okay, but like
not
it
punk
is
rock
it
at
is
all.
that's bullshit though, because like the really good punk rock bands practice all the fucking time. Like they
This is true.
do. They pretend they don't, but they do.
Yeah, punk is a really interesting like sort of like movement and aesthetic because I think doing it really well, so you have to sort of like hide and cover up that that underlying professionalism of doing anything really well, right?
Yeah,
Of trying hard. You're not ever supposed to look like you're trying hard. You know what I mean?
right.
And I think there are definitely times, certainly at like a local and or indie level, where people mix that up and they do a shitty job. Like, I mean, I'm sure
Yeah,
anybody that's into punk has seen some bad punk bands live, right?
right.
Where and it's not even too loud or too punk. It's just like they weren't ready or they're just too new
Hmm.
to it or something like that. And there are so many expectations that get out in like the sort of like popular culture idea of punk rock that may or may not track with like what really great punk bands do, which like you
Right.
said, practice like a shit ton.
Right. Like I think there's a difference between not being good because you okay, so I would say this goes back to the whole idea of like talent versus skill versus luck, right? In any endeavor, artistic or otherwise. But like, I think in punk music there's a higher appreciation for talent over skill.
Hmm.
And I think
It's a
some of
cooler story, isn't it?
it's a cooler story, and image is really important in all rock music, but especially punk. And I think the reality is most great punk bands weren't talented. The Ramones are not a talented band. They are a skilled band, you
Oh,
know?
and they had the luck thing, right?
And they had,
They had a
well,
manager. They
yeah,
were in they were a part of a scene where like you had, you know, New York Dolls and television and stuff like that
yeah.
happening, and they had
They had
fucking Richard
CBGBs.
Hell.
They, it,
Yeah, they never would have made it like they would never would have had like a sort of like a venue, I want to say almost like a sponsor of CBGBs based on their merits
right.
as musicians. But they had a manager. What the hell is the name of their manager? He knew how to market it and
I
sort of
can't
like
remember.
take like, all right, this is a cool, interesting thing happening right now with like I think in that scene it mostly came out of television more than anything else, and
Mm,
Richard Hell. And he kind of said, all right, we're just gonna go like fucking full speed in this like weird direction that's
yeah.
happening right now. And yeah, I don't think it necessarily came directly out of the guys in that band. You know what I mean? Like I hate they're usually producers are sort of like boogeyman in like the
Yeah.
popular retellings of like musical lore. But I think sometimes, like I think in the case of the Ramones or the Sex Pistols, a lot of early punk stuff, I think um,
The
the weird boy band thing that
yeah,
happens sometimes.
somebody built a story around them, and it wasn't necessarily them that did it. Um,
Yeah,
it
and that it allowed them to lean into what made them different, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
so important for anything creative, to lean into whatever makes you unique or noteworthy, and not just like the next fucking 8 bands,
right,
you know,
right.
or artists or writers or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, and those guys at the end of the day, what shit? Which one was I always get which name goes because they all call themselves Ramon. Was
Yeah,
it Johnny who was the guitar player?
dude, I'm gonna fuck it up. I think that's right. I
Okay.
think Tommy played drums and Dee Dee played bass. Hey, everybody, flam Andrew in the comments, not me, because I
Yeah,
never
yeah,
professed
let's
to know
get it
about this.
going. Yeah,
I'm
let's
not a
get it.
punk. I like punk. I
Yeah,
am not myself a
yeah.
punk.
But like he only downstrummed, right? That's really, I'm not I almost said magician. I am not a magician
Yeah.
either, but I'm not a musician. But I watch a lot of music
Hey,
documentaries.
don't be so hard on yourself, man. You'll
uh,
get there.
but I watched a documentary, and they talked about how the guitar player in the Ramones, nobody considers the Ramones a talented band, but because he practiced so much at being fast, he became one of the fastest guitar players, and all he was doing was downstrumming. He would not ever.
Yeah, okay. I gotta stop you right there. I like the Ramones. I've enjoyed the Ramones many times, and will continue. But like, there is nothing impressive about their guitar
No.
playing.
Well,
Speaking
no.
as a guitar player, he's faster. He's faster than fuck all. I mean, like even in the same genre, you know. I mean, they're good. It's fun.
Right.
It moves me and it's powerful, and that's what's more important. But it's not impressive at all. Like they're not even that fast. If you listen to a lot of Ramones songs, certainly all the hits are kind of like cranked up like 50s throwback shit, you know?
Oh yeah,
And
no,
that's great. That's nothing wrong with that,
absolutely.
you know?
Yeah,
Like Sheena is a punk rocker or Blitzkrieg Bop, or you know,
yeah.
anything that like people like really fucking latched onto wasn't even that fast.
No, I agree. I just mean like later in their career when they didn't have quite as many hits, because it was like the late '80s or whatever. They
Yeah, and they did all this weird production stuff with that stuff
yeah, yeah.
where
Well, but
like
like
they almost made it sound like a new wave thing, but it's
yeah.
weird.
But you do get a song like Bonzo Goes to Pittsburgh out of it, which, not everyone was like, not everyone landed, but you had a couple that are actually really good. I'm sorry, it says we're running out of time, and I didn't think there was a time limit on the 2-person Zoom meetings.
Oh shit. Maybe it's because you're recording. I don't
That
know.
that may
I'm
be
kind of new to this.
the
So what
case.
we could do, we could just stop it when it runs out, take a break, and then just do the other half ish. What do
Yeah,
you think?
yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah. And we did a lot more BSing before we started, so hopefully that
Yeah.
should wrap us
Hey,
up.
I got piles of BS, man. No
um,
shortage.
yeah. Well, let's talk about Rough Age for a bit. Where are you guys at with it right now? I know you've been doing a lot of solo stuff. Is it just kind of you at this point, or are there
Right.
still other band members?
So right now it is just me. A couple of years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I kind of decided I wanted to do some different sounds, and I wanted to play smaller venues and smaller rooms, like whether for touring purposes or just kind of more flexible. I can play anywhere I want to, and I decided for both of those reasons, partly the different sounds and partly where places I could play, I wanted to be able to do a solo rough age thing, and I had done that before, but it just wasn't very good. It was
Okay.
missing the bass and drums. So I started rough age. I started writing songs. I'd been in a cover band with some coworkers for a while. I started writing songs, and I hooked up with Michael Salakind on drums and Tracy Santa on bass. So these guys play as Wild Hairs still to this day. Tracy Santa is one of the best kept secrets around as far as like songwriting and like great sort of like old school 70s like pub rock stuff, like Nick Lowe kind of style. Anyway, I started playing with them, and I wanted to do some different stuff that it just wasn't going to be a good fit. So I started working on looper arrangements. So for anybody that listens and doesn't know, a looper pedal is a guitar effect pedal where you're playing stuff, you hit the button and it records it, and then you hit it again and it starts playing it back in a loop. And then you can play over that, or maybe you sing over that, or you add a stomp box like I have. Um, and you can build arrangements live, and people can kind of watch you do it, and hopefully it's kind of fun to watch somebody build up this arrangement of a song section by section and layer by layer. So I started doing that stuff. I decided I needed a keyboard to do that, to add some tonal varieties, and just address a lot of the stuff that I hate about looper artists, which is they're too repetitive sometimes. Sometimes they take too long to build up a song structure, and sometimes the stuff they're layering is too much of the same tone. So so I saw this guy Joseph Arthur in it's probably 2014. I saw him open up for the Afghan Wigs, who I love, but Joseph Arthur is this solo guy. You hear him on KRCC now and then. He he's been around for, I don't know, 20, 30 years. He's an amazing songwriter, and he does this epic live show with just him. And he doesn't do a lot of looping, but he does a little bit here and there. He even does a song where he does a painting live, and then he'll go sell it out in the lobby while the Afghan Wigs are playing.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, and he's like holding the mic and he's singing and he's spray painting at the same time, and all of which is not the reason he's amazing. He's amazing because he writes great songs and records and produces just amazing music. But anyway, he started making me question, like, because I'd always hated looper artists, and I
Hmm.
saw this guy do it, and I said, well, if you do a little bit of looping, it's not boring. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you don't loop all the time, and you had a stomp box, and you don't let the looping thing detract from a good song arrangement. And that's always sort of my rule. Like, if the doing the looper technology crap detracts from the song, it's got to go. It's
Right.
it's done. I'll just do it acoustic. That playing acoustic or acoustic with a stomp box is far preferable to having a boring 20-minute arrangement of a song that's the same stupid riff throughout the whole thing, which is the kind of thing you can end up with if you do looping in sort of like a lazy way.
Right.
Sorry, that was a really long answer,
No, no, that's
but
okay. That's okay.
that's how I ended up here. And sometimes, so okay, so sometimes, a couple times, I've had a lead guitar guy, Dave Morris, who recently moved to Florida, and then I had this guy Ian Pfeffer last year, who had a kid and now moved to Salt Lake City. But they would add lead guitar stuff over sort of like a looper arrangement that I was already doing. So the idea there is, if my bandmate moves, or if they have a kid and become unavailable due to something way more important, I can still do my show. You know what I mean?
Right.
And that is a constant thing in my experience as a musician. You're constantly finding bandmates, finding the right bandmates. If you have an ongoing project, you got to get them trained up on your songs. You've got to negotiate a sound together that works and gels. You've got to incorporate their contributions. And then after 6 months of all that work, they may be busy and have to quit, or they may move. So I'm trying to be a little bit independent to be able to do a show. And if I can add a lead guitar dude, because there's always another guitar player, to be frank. You
It's
can't
harder
fall
to
down
find
without
bass
hitting your
players.
elbow on 3 guitar players.
Yeah. It's harder to find bass players in this town, I think.
Right. And usually what you end up with is like a guy that kind of plays guitar.
Right.
To me, like a really great drummer who's not already in 4 bands is the hardest to find.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's why I'm working on some recordings. I actually hired out the drums. I have several friends that I would pay. Kevin Johnson, I think, was next on the list because he's an epic drummer and he's not in a band as far as I know. But I had recently talked to Emily Gould, so I just hired her because I wanted somebody to do just an awesome job. Somebody that has good gear, takes the song seriously, puts the song first. And she's in 4 bands, so I can't just like soak up all her time and say, hey, why don't you just be in Rough Age permanently? She's busy. She's in the best band in town, Spirettes.
Yeah. Oh,
and
they're
a couple
fantastic.
others.
We are. Hold on. Okay, so we're gonna have to start the meeting again to get more recording, but we've got less than a minute, so I'm gonna end it and then we'll get back to you.
All right.
All right, we're back, guys. We were talking about how great Spirettes are.
Just superlative.
Yeah.
They're the best band in town. It's not really particularly close, I don't think. Who else? I shouldn't think in terms of like competitive or like ranking people, but they're really fucking good. And I just got a word that their drummer is maybe going to be on this podcast in the form of a new Rough Age tune, not totally released.
Oh, hell yeah. Yes.
If Andrew's down.
We're gonna add it at the end, guys. It'll be great. Yeah,
Sure,
but I gotta get some of them on. I know you're friends with them and Charlotte's friends with them, so I think I can convince them to do the show.
Well, they've been in, like, Kelly and Katie and Emily have been in so many, and Lisa, but the first 3 I know have been in a lot of good bands. So I mean, as talented as Rachel and Lisa are, just all the other things they've been involved with in the community, I bet they could you'd have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about.
Oh yeah,
you need a longer podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to keep these to an hour and a half because I know a lot of people don't like longer podcasts, but like I do listen to some that are like 2 hours long, and a couple of these have ballooned out to that. So
my buddy Aiden, I used to work with him. Now I'm working on a Bowie cover that we're doing a recording in a music video for, of Ashes to Ashes.
Nice.
And that's what I was working on editing. But anyway, he has a great saying. I didn't have time to write you a short email, so I wrote you a long one. And it applies to so many things. Like, it could be like a podcast editing, or editing down a song or a short story or anything. But sometimes brevity takes a lot of work, right?
It does. It really can. Some of the stories that have taken me the longest are 500 words long. It's and it's hard to know when something is too long. Like, that takes a lot of effort or not effort necessarily, but experience. It takes a lot of experience to know exactly how long something should be when you start getting to that level of diminishing returns.
Well, it's like you have to let go, right?
Mm-hmm.
To edit stuff out that maybe you're too attached to. And to me, the most consistent way I have around that is either to outsource some of that decision making. Like I always send songs to my brother, and almost always he tells me like this is too long, and
Right.
he's almost always right. Like Hangover Cure is a great example where I cut out. God, I think I cut out like 3 stanzas of verse and half of the intro. Um, and it's still not that short. Like I still can't seem to write a 3-minute song, but I think it was like 4.5 territory, and it had like an instrumental section. Um, so yeah,
Yeah, well, I think 4.5 is respectable. I mean, it's you start getting to 6 to 8 minute range. That's when it starts. Okay, are we being a little too jammy right now?
yeah. I mean, like there's definitely exceptions, but like
Oh hell
God,
yeah,
you can't be there all the time. That's for sure. My
yeah,
no, my ambition is to get better at writing like 1 to 2 2.5 minute songs like the Pixies. You know,
yeah,
where like all of my favorite stuff of theirs is like they do like they'll a few times they'll do something that's just fucking magical, and they'll do it once. You
yep,
know what I mean? It's 3 seconds long and you only get it one time. And the result of that is you're always left wanting more and you're never tired of it. Like unlike a Foo Fighters song where it could be a great song, but they sing the chorus 10 times at the end. So by the end, it's the I hate it. Like I hate
yeah.
the sound of Dave Grohl's voice because I've just heard it for too long.
Right. There's Dave Grohl writes songs that are I don't know if you grew up in the church or not, but I grew up in a very religious household, and worship music was a big uh part of my life whether I liked it or not. Um
I
and
had yeah,
there's a, the Foo Fighters and U2 and a lot of kind of, let's say, rock bands that are good and make a lot of money but are kind of a punchline to the underground. uh every worship song is written in that style. Every
yeah,
single one.
yeah. I think I think they're an easy punchline, both of those bands. But I also think like, man, if you're acting like there's nothing there, like there's no reason they're big, and there's no reason that people sort of like fell in love with that, especially like a couple of decades ago or 30 years ago when they were better. I'm talking about you two now.
Yeah,
If you're pretending there's nothing there, you're just fucking lying. You know what I
I
mean? Like some of those early U2 records and even the middle era U2 records are just epic.
oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
uh,
I never understood the hate. Like I haven't cared for anything they've put out in probably 15, 20 years.
I
But
haven't even heard it.
yeah, I mean that
I'm
doesn't
sure it's
mean,
terrible.
yeah, like War is a fantastic album, and if you don't think War is a fantastic album, especially for the time it was written in and what it was written about in the political circumstances surrounding it,
Dude,
it's
even some of that stuff going into the 90s, I'm not
yeah.
like super well versed in their discography, but got some guys in town did a U2 tribute band. This is probably like 10 years ago now, and it really, like, just seeing a whole set of it live, kind of like, oh man, that's a really strong set of music.
Yeah.
Like and like there wasn't any fat in it. You know what I mean? Like I've been involved in a few of these tribute band things that you'll do for Halloween sometimes.
Yeah.
Jeff Fuller and Aaron Retka are the guys that do it the most, and are sort of ringleaders of a lot of them. Um, but yeah, I mean, like you really see some stronger than others. Like last year, I think they did Huey Lewis in the News, and I know I'm gonna get some shit for this, but I don't give a fuck. I was with them in an Elvis Costello tribute band several years
Yeah.
ago, and I fucking worship Elvis Costello and probably anybody he's ever played with.
Yeah.
I did keys. I was Steve Naive,
Yeah.
which was a lot of work. But anyway, they did Huey Lewis in the News, which for some reason is always compared to Elvis Costello. Uh,
It
I don't know
doesn't make
why,
any
because they're
sense,
not
really.
as good. Like
No.
they're nowhere close to the same level in any like category that you could like look at.
It's like
But anyway,
maybe if you pulled all of Elvis Costello's teeth out or something, like I would never compare the two. I didn't know that was a thing.
Well, if you did that, he'd just be the guy from The Fall, right?
Oh, that,
What I can't think of his name.
I don't know. I don't know. All I know is I know nothing about the Fall other than their music's pretty weird and I like it a lot.
It's like they're just like flinging stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. And once in a while, it's amazing.
Yeah.
And then they had good riffs that Elastica could steal. And anything that made Elastica possible is a good thing.
Yeah. Oh fuck. I was listening to something on YouTube the other day just because it popped up and it was a cult song and the riff Nirvana just ripped off. I can't remember.
Oh, did Nirvana rip off a cult riff?
Nirvana
Holy
ripped off a
shit.
cult riff for like
Oh, I gotta look this up.
I'm trying to remember. I can't remember either song now. I think it might have been a Sun or something.
Wow.
No, it was "Come as
I
You Are" was ripped off from a cult song.
I used to love the cult, and
They're
they're
a good
still a
band.
guilty pleasure. I
They're
saw them in Corpus Christi a while back.
yeah. Oh, really? That would be
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
I
no, my
feel like
first serious girlfriend, I'm from San Antonio, and my first serious girlfriend got us tickets to go see the cult down in Corpus Christi. And they're sort of getting on in years by this
yeah.
point, and they had a new album that was very different from the classic cult sounds that people would know from the radio, but like they were a pretty good show.
Yeah.
But I want to finish my point about Huey
Oh,
Lewis and the News.
sorry.
Huey Lewis and the News has moments where they're pretty good, but like if you put out a whole set of it, it doesn't hang with U2 or Elvis
Oh,
Costello
sure. No.
or any of these tribute bands. Like the other one that year was the Smiths, and that was like it was like picking your favorite song, I'm sure, or picking your favorite kid to kill, trying to cut the set list down because there's so many great Smith songs.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about Morrissey's later stuff?
You know what? He's such an asshole, and I kind of got into the Smiths like well into adulthood
Yeah.
that I haven't even checked out his solo stuff because he just sounds like somebody that I just like. I'm not gonna like him as much if I get any more familiar with him.
Yeah.
So I just kind of said, nope. Too bad Morrissey died after he split up with Johnny Marr. That's a real
Yeah.
shame. Whatever happened to that guy? I wonder. I'm just choosing to like ignore that it exists.
It's right. Oh, Johnny Marr did an album with the Modest Mouse. I wonder what Morrissey would have thought about that. Too bad he's dead and we'll never find out.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh, wait, did he? I might have to check that. Which
Yeah,
one
he
album?
did.
Which album is that?
He did the one with Float on it, I think was with
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a fucking great album. I'm
yeah, it
really
is.
hot and
It is.
cold on Modest Mouse. And
Yeah.
as soon as anybody tells me otherwise, I send them a link to Dirty Fingernails. If you haven't heard Dirty Fingernails and you want to get on my case about how Modest Mouse can do no wrong, then go listen to Dirty Fingernails. I still love Modest Mouse, but like they're good and bad.
Well, I mean, they are a indie band. Like they're an indie band that made good, but they were making that. They're from like South Carolina or Texas, or they're from like some weirdo place in the South, and just started making tapes in the mid '90s. They're like I don't know. I mean, the Moon in Antarctica is one of my favorite albums.
Mhm.
But like I agree. They made shit because they were, when they started out, especially, they were fucking kids and they had no direction. They had no producers. They just I
Yeah.
don't think Isaac
So
Rock.
Isaac Brock, he's involved in a bunch of Wolf Parade stuff recently, right?
I don't know.
And
I don't know. I
I
don't even
can't
know Wolf
tell.
Parade.
Oh, Wolf Parade's really good. And they've kind of gone like they're sort of in this like in between like garage rock and sometimes they're a little bit more like sort of like an indie pop kind of territory or power pop
Okay.
more kind of a thing. And then sometimes they get a little weirder. But like I don't know if Isaac Brock took over vocals or if the singer of Wolf Parade just started singing more like him. But a
Right.
weird thing happened, and I haven't done my research on who did what. But Isaac Brock produced some stuff, and it's like all of a sudden it really sounds like Isaac Brock.
Yeah. It's weird how sometimes that happens. Like, oh, who was it? It's gonna bother me. Uh, they just came out with an album last year, and St. Vincent produced it.
Oh, Slater Kinney.
Slater Kinney.
Dude,
Yeah.
like, you know what? Like, if people weren't expecting Slater Kinney, everybody would have loved that record.
I agree. I agree. I think it is objectively good. It is not what I want from Slater Kinney, which does not mean it's bad. Uh, you know,
Yeah, no, dude, that's fucking solid. Although that the last Slater Kinney, what was
no,
No Cities to
yeah, no
Love right
cities
before
to
that?
love. Yeah,
That was that was actually I think one of their best.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I have this theory. We were talking about Foo Fighters earlier. I have this theory that in the best timeline, Slater Kinney is the Foo Fighters, and the Foo Fighters have Slater Kinney's career. Uh, in that Slater Kinney became the biggest band in the world because I honestly think they're that good. Um,
Yeah, oh man, that's hard to fuck with. I don't always feel like Slater Kinney, but they're amazing.
yeah,
Just every part of the every instrument and every voice and the tight song arrangements. Yeah, they're magical.
yeah, they're like I don't want to say they're like the female Fugazi because one, that's kind of sexist and it takes away from what Slater Kinney is.
They're way better than Fugazi. I'll say it. I'll
Well,
say it
I don't
for
know.
you.
I don't
I
know
don't give a
about that.
shit.
I would. They're pretty cool, neck
Okay,
and neck for me.
look at the whole catalog. If I put together a Slater Kinney greatest hits, yeah, Fugazi can't hang.
Ooh, I don't know.
And I know it's not fair because they got a lot more albums to pick from. So
Yeah,
it's like Rolling Stones greatest hits versus Nirvana. There's so much to pick from. You can kind of like game it a little bit.
yeah, yeah.
Actually, I'd probably still take Nirvana, but it'd be closer.
Yeah, well, I mean, if only because of like when I grew up, I'd probably be the same. Although there was a time when I would have gone Rolling Stones over Nirvana. Probably not now though. But my point being that I think Slater Kinney did for like Riot Girl what Fugazi did for hardcore.
It was like Riot Girl grown up,
Yeah,
and I
yeah,
mean they
exactly.
do so many things that are just not. I I don't know if a better term for this. They're not cookie cutter punk. There's
Right.
so many like weird guitar sounds that kind of go in and out of key.
Hmm.
Um, and they sort of play with vocal sounds that can be really strident, but they know where they are within the melody at all times,
Hmm.
and they come back to it, and that's what makes it like powerful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I find, and this is probably like a very common indie boy punk rock kid kind of thought process, but I like discordant guitars with melodic melodies, and I like discordant or discordant discordant guitars with melodic vocals and discordant vocals with melodic guitars. But there are exceptions to that. I think Slater Kinney is one. I also think Modest Mouse is one,
Hmm.
where they're both
Totally.
pretty discordant and make it work anyway.
Are you a PJ Harvey fan?
I am. I've never quite dug in as hard as like I feel I should. Because I
There's a
like,
lot, and it's
yeah,
weird because every album is really different.
yeah.
You know, and rarely will she go more. I mean, I think maybe at most she'll go two albums in a row with pretty
Hmm.
similar sounds, and then some of it is really catchy, and some of it is frankly hard to listen to.
Yeah.
But it's always really thoughtfully done, and she gets the best fucking people.
Oh
And she
yeah.
also has a weird habit of like I feel like every time she's like a guest vocalist on something, that song's immediately like 10 times better too. I saw
Oh
her live a
yeah.
few years ago at
Yeah.
the Fillmore, and she plays saxophone, and she played this saxophone, and she had this like I don't usually nerd out on rock saxophone, but it was more like avant-garde weird ass free jazz
Hmm.
saxophone that was like this constant like insane atonal squealing, and it doesn't sound good to hear the description, but like it was just something else to behold,
It
man.
it
And it
worked.
went along with her last last big out. Maybe it's not her latest album. The Hope Six Demolition Project stuff.
It's hard to keep track because she puts them out all the time.
Yeah, she is. She's like, she's a real hero of mine. I
Yeah.
aspire to be more like that. I'm not much like that. I'm way more sort of like go straight after the melody and the beat and the like hook kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm not as brave or as adventurous as somebody like that, and I know it. Um, but you know,
Well, I
who
would
you are.
say you're very very good at what you do though. I mean, I know you're you're not a fan of praise, but like
I'll
you're
log. I'm gonna log off if you don't knock it off.
but I mean, you're doing a very like it's fucking rock and roll, and you can hear there are alternative influences there. There are, you know, classic rock influences there, but it's there's also like a huge amount of competence in what you do, which is lacking in a lot of I would say underground, you
Like an
know,
indie production.
self indie production stuff.
Yeah.
You know, you're of probably my friends probably the best at handling your own production for sure.
I'm relatively new to it. I did do. Do you know Andy Tanner?
I don't know
Andy
Andy.
Tanner. Oh man, you got to know Andy Tanner. He's a local singer songwriter. He plays in a band called Salt of Sanguine, but he's been in a bunch of great bands. Head Hum, Layman Terms. He was in a Denver-based band called Dwayne. He played with Kelly Palmblad and Constellation of Cars as a duo. He's epic, and he's a buddy of mine. He lives like 2 blocks up the street from me,
Yeah.
and we did his last EP here in this room. I can't really move the laptop comfort. Actually, no, totally can. This is the studio. This is the wood shop. My converted soundproofed garage.
Oh,
That's the
that's
recording booth.
I'm so jealous.
Anyway,
I'm so jealous.
yeah. But I did his last EP here, and it was sort of. I mean, I think he gave me like a little bit of money, but it was mostly kind of an opportunity for me to kind of like get my feet wet, like really not doing a demo, but doing a record. And
Mhm.
all right, this is what we're gonna put out. So get it right.
Yeah.
And I'm not his terms. Like Andy's not the kind of guy who put a lot of like pressure on you, but I wanted to sort of see how good I could do. And
Right.
now I'm trying to do some of my own stuff and do home production, mixing, stuff like that. I may not master it myself, but probably everything up to that.
Yeah. How are you going crazy yet?
You know, I am, but not in a very exciting way. What I'm really doing is I'm home all the fucking time. I'm in this room working for my day job at home, and I just don't feel like working on it a lot. So I've been dragging my feet on final mixes for months and
Yeah.
months. And I got some friends. I got Charlotte on one tune. She added some great vocals.
Shout out
I
to
got a
Stalemate on Spotify,
yeah,
iTunes, all that good stuff.
absolutely. Stalemate, epic local band. Great stuff. Um, I think some of it might not be on all the streaming services. You might have to hit up Bandcamp for some of that good Stalemate
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Yeah, they got a couple things on
Um,
Bandcamp.
I got Colin Estes and Aaron Moore on some
Mhm.
stuff, and I've just totally been dragging my feet and kind of like really struggling with the whole Corona times. And it ought to be a great opportunity to write and record and grind out, you know, good material at home. And it just has. I require way more social interaction than I would like to admit,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't get to go out. I don't go to shows. I'm certainly not playing shows. I actually joined a band because I kind of sort of admitted to myself, like, I need like this sort of like group music making
Mhm.
experience. We're not practicing right now because I'm quarantining, but I joined an alt country cover band
Yeah.
a couple of months ago playing lead guitar. We don't even have a name yet.
Who are you guys playing? Because like alt country's something I like a lot whenever I hear it, but I don't know enough to really dig into the genre.
Right. Well, it's a little bit nebulous. The way I think of it is the real definition of alt country is country that is not pop country,
Right.
right? Country that you couldn't play on the pop country station. To me, that's what it is. So we're doing like Uncle Tupelo.
Yeah.
We've got a little bit of like pop stuff in some Dwight Yoakam.
Hmm.
which isn't something I usually listen to, but playing the guitar stuff is fun as hell, and
Yeah.
it has been educational for me even. God, what are we doing? Old 97s. I'm fighting hard to get
Well,
more old
I
97s.
fucking love old 97s actually.
Yes,
I have them
peace
on
be
vinyl.
upon them.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fighting hard for Cracker and or Camper Van Beethoven, who are David Lowery's two main bands, and probably the biggest reason for me and how my music being what it is.
Hmm.
Just as sort of like a songwriting role model, and a fair amount of like just sounds and
Yeah.
rhythms and styles that I absorbed
I
by.
did not know they were the same person.
Oh yeah, same singer songwriter David Lowery.
Okay.
Occasionally, other people will sing. Johnny Hickman's the other sort of permanent guy
Hmm.
in Cracker, the lead guitar
Yeah.
player.
I mean, I'm 32. Everybody my age knows Cracker. I feel like somehow I missed the boat on Camper von Beethoven until this year, and
Oh shit! Well,
I started
they
listening
played
to them, and they're fucking fantastic.
they played at Lulu's last year. Yeah, in Manitou.
Damn it!
Epic show, and they had the original violin player back.
Hell
Although
yeah!
I've seen them without the violin player, and it's actually better than you would think, because they had this guitar guy Greg Leisher who can sort of like passively duplicate those parts on an electric guitar in a surprisingly good way. But anyway, I could gush about those two bands. And here's a crazy thing: their recent records for both of those bands, every bit as good as the old stuff. Like
That's awesome.
if you're only going back to the old shit for Camper Van Beethoven, don't sleep on the last couple of. They did a couple of records, like a Southern California and Northern California one.
Cool.
Um, Camino Real, and I can't remember the name of the other one, but they came out as a pair. They're really good. Last couple of Cracker records are great too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always feel weird wearing my Cracker T-shirt because I wonder if everybody's gonna think, oh, that's like a racial thing. Is this like a white pride thing? And they're gonna think I'm this like alt-right asshole. And I just don't. I think I read on David Lowery's blog, there's some stupid, obscure slang. It's like Cracker Jack or some stupid shit that nobody says anymore
Hmm.
is what it's supposed to be about. But like nobody's gonna get that. And
Right.
I'm just like, it's just a really great band. I
Right.
swear to God.
Well, and look, if when did Cracker start? Like 91 or something? Like
That sounds about right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like okay, it turns out if you just called yourself Cracker because you're a white guy in 1991, that's not racist. It's not
I'm not sure. I feel like even the term cracker for white dude is a little bit of an archaic slang that people
yeah,
don't really say that anymore.
no,
But I don't know how somebody of color is going to interpret that. And it's
right.
not like the first thing if I see a black friend, I'm just like, hey, I need to ask your opinion on behalf of all black people. That would be a weird
No, that's a bad
thing to
move.
even ask about. So yeah.
Yeah. Plus, like I nothing surprises me at this point. Dumb racists could start walking around with Cracker shirts just to.
Oh God.
It's like
I
we're
hope that doesn't
taking it
happen.
back, just like the
Jesus.
N word. It's like no, that's no, you're not.
Dude, that's like the worst fucking thing that could happen. Because I'm gonna have to not like. I mean, how do I like profess being like super into this great songwriter
Yeah.
who admire? I mean,
Well,
some people hate David Lowery, but I mean, if he pissed somebody off, it's not really my problem.
right.
And
Well,
it's not about fucking white supremacy. Jesus.
yeah, certainly not. Well, and it's everything kind of changes though because you've got like a band like Andrew Jackson Jihad,
I
and they
don't know
just
them.
well, they're pretty good. You know, like all that post hardcore. It might not be your jam. It's a little like post hardcore stuff. But they were kids when they started, and yeah, Andrew Jackson Jihad. That's a punk rock name, and now they're in their late 30s, and they're like, we're just gonna go by AJJ now, and
Uh,
hope you guys are cool with that because it was kind of tasteless.
so I assume it's because they don't want to own Andrew Jackson more than the jihad thing, but I could see it going either way.
Yeah, well, I think they probably formed in like the early 2000s, and so post 9/11, it was very provocative to invoke jihad. Plus, Andrew Jackson had the Trail of Tears, which is,
Oh, he's gonna be provocative for all time.
yeah. So
To put it
I
mildly.
think they're like we're like they were just being assholes, when they started the band, and now they're like, we're adults, we make good music, we don't want to fully change the name of the band because we want everybody to still find us, but we're just gonna go by AJJ now because
A lot of like a lot of like punk, hardcore rock stuff. I think a lot of people get saddled with decisions they made when they were like 20.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, you ever listen to Annual Nos by the Trail of Dead?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, fucking great Austin. I want to call them post-rock band, but post-rock is rock. It's just prog rock to me.
Right.
But they're good. They're really good. I used to live in Austin. I would see them at like little venues and stuff. Anyway, they were like really amazed that they saw this translated thing in like two different like archaeological artifacts, and You Will Know Us by the Trail of Dead, and that's what they named their band after. That this cool coincidence in archaeology, and it's just like, man, that's gonna get weird when you're 40. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's just the last thing I probably heard in my truck.
But like, I also, it sucks when you're married to it when you're 40, but also like, it's cool when you're 20, and pretending it's not cool when you're 20 is also kind of like, not being honest either. It's like,
and you could always change it, right?
Yeah, you can always change it. And
so my like recent change was, I'm gonna decide not to change the name of the band, even though it's a very different project. I went from being like a 3 to 4 piece rock band to now I'm a solo act, and sometimes there's another guy playing lead guitar, sometimes there's not. And I've just decided I don't give a shit, and I want some continuity in the name. And I don't think Michael and Tracy mind. We're still friends for sure.
Yeah.
But I wonder how people feel about, like, Bright Eyes or Nine Inch Nails,
sure,
or Iron and Wine. They all kind of do this thing where they got this name and they're like, all right, well, I guess that's my brand, and I'm making money and I can get people out to the show with this. So I'm sure that's part of their calculus, right?
Yeah. I
don't want to abandon this thing that everybody knows.
I think at least with Nine Inch Nails, he was Nine Inch Nails before he had a band, right? Like, he was making weird music in his bedroom as Nine Inch Nails. So I think that's him.
I think that's probably true of Bright Eyes or Iron and Wine as well, right? Because they have such a folky.
Right. I'm not sure about Bright Eyes. I'm not the biggest Bright Eyes fan, so I haven't like gone down the rabbit hole and like what they're all about. But
I love Bright Eyes, but I also love to make fun of how it always sounds like he's sobbing on every line. But Conor Oberst is amazing, and I love him at the same time. I love to make fun of shit that I love.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more fun to make fun of things you like than things you hate. Or
if it's like Star Wars, it's both.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I want to like Star Wars, but I fucking don't, man. Except Mandalorian's solid.
Mandalorian's rad. I am a pretty big Last Jedi defender.
Is that the second one of the last bunch?
Yeah, that's the second one of the last bunch. It is not a perfect movie. There are legitimate reasons not to like it, and I respect plenty of people who have legitimate reasons not to like it. But then there are a bunch of racist bullshit reasons not to like it, and I want to put those people on the ground.
I grew up like a hardcore Star Wars nerd. Yeah, and I really want to like all the Star Wars stuff on like a gut inner 9-year-old level. Yeah. And I don't, and we probably don't have enough time for me to get into all that.
No. That's a different
also podcast. Not something I know a lot about.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Ask me about guitar or something. A little bit about guitar.
We can't.
I don't know why I got into that.
Star Wars rabbit hole. Yeah. Well, actually, yeah. What do you plan on calling the new album?
Oh, so that's an interesting thing. I think I'm going to leak out a couple of singles and then put out an EP a little bit later.
Okay.
Because I want to try some stuff, marketing it to radio stations and try and make a media splash and figure out how to do that whole thing. Because I didn't do it when I put out the one Rough Age record that's out there.
Yeah.
I didn't do it really. And I want to have a few different releases, and kind of the easiest way to do that is to put out a couple singles, try some stuff, email some bloggers, I don't know, send it to radio stations or Pitchfork, I don't know.
Yeah.
And I want to get a little bit of practice doing that. So it's totally a marketing decision.
Yeah. No, I think that's smart. I didn't do any of that when I released my album. I mean, everything's a little different with comedy than music. There are only a few comedy radio stations, but I said fuck on every track on my album. So
right. Well, you can get away with that more on the internet now than.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, it used to be if you were putting out a CD, one where I don't know how well you can even sell an indie comedy CD.
Yeah.
But you'd need that explicit lyrics advisory or explicit language advisory sticker on there, and I don't know, that might cost you a few sales. It also might not. It's comedy.
Yeah.
People are expecting that, right?
Well, I'm not, I wasn't so worried about getting it into stores. I could probably, I am sure What's Left would stock it. If I took down, like the Astros would just put it in there because they're dope. Right. And I'm sure I could probably get it in the indie, but I'm not trying to send it to record stores. I couldn't get it played on the radio though.
Right.
I could, it might actually be playing on some Sirius XM station and I don't know about it. And
no shit.
Because when I put it out through CD Baby, I said they could send it out but I didn't do anything myself. So I'll get $10 from CD Baby every 3 months or whatever. And so there could be some.
And that's for all the digital stuff wrapped together, right?
Right. Nobody's paying me a lot. And it's doing, I mean, frankly, it's doing better than most of the albums musicians in this town have put out. And that's.
Sure.
But that's got nothing to do with quality. That's just got to do with a couple things I got lucky on.
Dude, you got to hit me up next time you're going to do a live recording, because I can fix your audio problem.
Yeah.
I can't help you with your jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll talk. I don't think I'm going to record anything else until 2022. Corona obviously has just fucked me on live performance. And
so I wanted to ask you about this.
Yeah.
I used to do shows. I mean, I've only done like maybe 2 or 3, but I've done shows with comics. Mostly I'd hit up John Brown.
Yeah.
On your show, and is a super fucking funny guy.
Yes, he is.
And he emceed one, and I think we got a bunch of comics down in Pueblo on 1 or 2 other shows down at the Downtown Bar a while back when they still did music there. So I want to ask, how do you do music and comedy together at a show and make it work? Like, because I think it's harder. I think there are more requirements and boundary conditions for the comics than there are for the band. I think if the comic was good or bad, it doesn't affect the band or the musician as much as the other way. Right. So what has to happen if you're doing a show like that? Like if we did a show next month and we had a comic or 2 and a singer-songwriter or 2, what would have to happen to set it up for success?
Okay, well, I have thought about this a lot. I worked really hard for a little while to try, not because I necessarily think showcases should always be comedy and music and whatever. I just wanted to bridge gaps between the scenes in this town. So I ran a storytelling show for a while, and the way I pieced it out was I had 2 storytellers who were usually comedians. Then I would have a musician. Then I would have 1 more storyteller, and then a poet at the end.
Okay. Like a big in your face, like a slam poet kind of.
Well, like
big voice sort of poet, or it depends.
It depended, because my goal wasn't even. It's weird because I wanted to have good shows, but the goal of the show wasn't even to be the best show in town. The goal of the show was to bring us all together. And I made friends. It sort of worked, but at the end of the day, I was making more money producing actual comedy shows, and so and it was too stressful to do both. So I kind of put that one to bed for a while and focused on producing the comedy shows that were making more money. Um,
Let me
but
ask you one. I know oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, no. Well, all I was gonna say is, but I do think having a theme to the show, gearing the let's say having John Brown on with a band like say the A-holes fucking rocks, right?
Mhm.
Having me on with somebody like you might be a better mesh than me with the a-holes. Actually, I'd probably do fine on that show, but having
Well, John's loud and provocative,
right,
right? That's
exactly,
his style, right?
yeah. I think having a good pairing, where it's music and comedy that complement each other is part of the challenge, and that requires more research than just I'm putting on a show. Here's a band I like. Here's a comic I like,
Mm.
or here are three comics in a band. I will say this about the just the production of the show. Comedy should always go first. Music should go last.
So
Music
you
is
can't
that.
interleave him because we've done some
Um,
of that, and I don't know. I don't know if it worked or not. Nobody seemed to
yeah.
mind, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we set the comics up for success.
Well, so at an open mic or at a like coffee shop show, I think that can work perfectly. Having a rock band on the show, uh, music's music's objectively a better art form than comedy, or it is a. I don't even believe in high or low art. I think all art can transcend whatever the medium, but
Well, I think it's easier. I
I
mean, not that it isn't hard, but I mean, I think people I think it requires less of the listener. I think you can
it
enjoy
I
music on a
will
background
agree.
level, but you have to actually pay attention to get the jokes.
Yes, that's true. I won't say comedy's harder than music because I'm pretty good at comedy. I have picked up the guitar 5 times and spent months trying to learn, and I can play uh 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 most of Come As You Are and a pretty shitty version of uh Johnny Be Good. I can't. I have tried really hard to learn music and I can't, but I figured out comedy. So I don't think comedy is harder than music, but I will agree it requires more of the audience. Um,
Yeah. So I did locals to last call
yeah.
in March, and it was
Mhm.
fun. I loved it.
I
I
think
do
that's
feel like
actually
it's
where we
hard.
met for the first time.
Yeah, it might have been. Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
it
Yeah, I
was
think you,
that
you
the
did a
first time?
little you did a few minutes at the open mic a bit after.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I remember seeing you and thinking you were funny.
yeah.
Um I think I think often I can't hear people well at these like small venue kind of
Mhm.
things. And I think maybe this is just me like nerding out on audio things, but like I wonder if like setting your expectations for like music and then like maybe you got to turn it up for the comics more, or
Yeah.
maybe you got to set them up with like an introduction or something like
Mhm.
that, or have a break. I think at open mics sometimes the comics they don't get the attention that they would really want to have
Right.
because there's no break. Like if it were a real show, there'd be a few minutes of setup or there'd be an introduction. Like I mean, like when I say a real show, I mean like a big ass theater full of people, professionally produced. Where there's like real fucking stakes. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
And
I
I think
think.
also people go out to a bar and they want to talk to their friends, and
Mhm.
if you
Mhm.
don't give them a breathing, a little like break to talk to their friends between acts, then you're basically asking them to pay attention every single minute, which they're not going to do.
Right. Right. It's a hard sell, and I'll say this for Locals to Last Call, which was for a while the longest running showcase in town. It had good attendance. It was run by very competent people and still is.
And they get
Um,
comics too,
and they have
and good
they
musicians.
great comics, great musicians. I will say
And
this, and
have not had. It's still going. Sorry.
it's still going on, and George and Russell are running it now because Melody wanted to take a step back. I'm gonna say this about it, which isn't a dig at Melody. We actually talked about it on the episode with her. The way she started that show when she'd been doing comedy about a month. And she hadn't, it's how she learned to produce shows, and she's much better at producing shows now than when she started Locals, but the format of Locals is a little janky.
In that it like ends in a like long open mic.
Well, no,
Or-
that's a nice thing to do. It's like a service to the comedy community, right?
Well, it probably helps get people out too.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Like
mean,
a lot of comics, they're going to show up if they can go do a few minutes, right?
exactly. And then you've got dicks who show up right as the open mic starts. But the having the comics come out first and do 10 minutes and then having music and having the same comic come out afterwards was always weird to me.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like having one comic do like 10 minutes up front, having one comic do the feature set, and then having music at the end, and then having the open mic would have been a smoother way of doing that show.
So in that kind of like a setup, the person doing the first 10 minutes, they're almost more of like a host MC kind of a role.
Right. It would be Melody's spot, and you could throw in a guest spot. Somebody who's coming up gets to do 5 minutes or whatever, while the audience is fresh and hot, and that's just like a fun thing to do. You do a drop-in set or whatever there. Then you have the feature comic, and then do music last.
Interesting.
I think music should usually headline for comedy, if given the option.
Just because of the volume level and
the volume
stuff like
level,
that.
the getting an audience to pay attention to comedy after music is, like you said, hard.
Well, yeah, if you think about what they're doing, like they're probably talking loudly during the music.
Mm-hmm,
I mean, and that's something like sometimes musicians complain about.
mm-hmm.
And I mean, you could go there if you want, but I mean, I'm just saying it's a fact about people drinking in bars, hanging out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think going the other direction with the volume is perilous.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you're interrupting their conversation. You're saying, "Hey, shut the fuck up." You know what I mean?
Right.
Stop talking to your friend about your stressful workday.
Right.
They're not. They're there to have fun.
Exactly. Everybody comes to a show to have fun. Everybody goes to a bar to have fun. So, on an open mic, I don't really feel bad if an audience isn't that good, because they just came to have a drink. If it's an open mic night, like
they owe you nothing.
They
right?
owe us nothing. If it's maybe the Zodiac, RIP, I'd get a little more annoyed because it was an established show. It's Monday night. I understand you came for a drink, but this is Monday nights in Colorado Springs. This is Zodiac night. Show some respect.
Yeah. Well, the other thing about an open mic is maybe you could argue, like, if all these people are performing that night, maybe, if they're performing, they could extend the same courtesy that they
Yes.
probably want from you when they're up in 10 minutes.
Right. And God, and hand to God, I've been the problem before. I think everybody has been at one time or another. They've been the guy who's been the asshole in the back.
Oh, dude, yeah, I'm perpetually loud. I'm always too loud.
Yeah. I mean,
so by now I've probably established a pattern. I'm one of those people that expect very little out of the audience, or maybe I've just been a little bit, maybe I just play in bars or at small venues enough that I've kind of decided, well, this is what I'm going to get. You know what I mean? Like, there's some great people in town who operate differently.
mm-hmm.
Like Connor Brugal plays out as Changing Colors, epic, great singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
Makes great records. Produced a really awesome Xanthi Alexis record that just came out a few months ago. He is very quiet. He is deliberately quiet. You have to shut up. You have to pay attention. And the crazy thing about it is he can work some magic where people shut up.
They shut up.
They realize they're too loud or stuff like that. I mean, normal people, I wouldn't, but just kidding.
Yeah. It's a thing that I've heard some like very seasoned comics talk about, is if you have a big energy guy on stage, even if you're kind of also like a big energy person, you start out kind of soft. If you're the next comic, you get quiet, you get a little deliberate, you change up the audience's expectations. And I think that's probably a good tactic to take to the audience.
But there's a pace to it, isn't there?
Right.
Like you can't just start mild-mannered and quiet, usually, I think, right?
Well,
I don't know, maybe you can, but I feel like I've never seen that.
I would say, so if I go up after John Brown and John Brown burns the house down because he's raging about injustice or something.
Taxation is theft!
Taxation is theft.
That was my John Brown impression.
Exactly. I love you, John. If I go on after John, I know, okay, I cannot do what John does. I cannot match that intensity. So I'm going to have to be, I'm going to have to throw out a different kind of joke, and I'm going to have to throw it out in a different kind of cadence or pace than what he does. And so sometimes if the audience is good, I'll come out and I'll express myself as kind of tired or, just mild-mannered.
And is that sort of like you're trying to like pull them along to a reaction?
Exactly.
Like, hey, come along with me. Whew, what was that? That was a thing that happened, and I'm not ignoring it.
Exactly. A lot of times, it'll be, especially if I'm hosting, you comment on the performer before you.
Right.
Musicians do this too. They just don't have to like play a song like they don't have to do a riff on the song that just happened. But I might have a tag on what the last performer said.
I usually try to like mention the other bands at a show, but the more I've looked at video of myself, the more I've come to realize the less banter, the better for musicians. It's not what we're there for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, the old adage, every comedian wants to be a rock star and every rock star wants to be a comedian, right? And the frustrating part about that is a comedian who has a guitar is loathed, and a rock star who tells a joke is goddamn king, right?
Yeah, I think comedians loathe comedians with a guitar.
Okay, that's fair.
I think
that's fair.
Like you gotta I've heard lots of stuff, and I'm trying to think what it is, but I've heard stuff in your podcast where it's sort of this like inside baseball mentality, and I think you gotta keep in mind the audience, the broader audience that is out there that you probably want to listen to your jokes.
Yeah.
They don't know about this shit. They don't give a fuck.
I guess that's true.
There's a lot of rules that are like sort of self-imposed by performers, all kinds of performers, that people in the audience don't know or care about.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
That's true. I mean,
I sort of like, again, I'm sort of the like expect nothing from the audience guy, and my take is like, is for comedy, which is not something I know a lot about. But if they're fucking laughing, and you didn't like steal jokes or something,
right?
If they're laughing, you did your job. Like it's an unqualified success, and I mean, like the rest is for the birds.
It is hard to turn the judgment off. Obvious. I mean, you've heard music that does well that you don't like, right?
Yeah, and I think getting older and getting a little more experience, and maybe even seeing some of my own ideas that can come out where I'm like, oh, did I really just do that?
Yeah.
Whatever. Like I give fewer fucks every year
Yeah.
about like judging something that is different than what I would make.
Mm-hmm.
So I can say, oh yeah, there's something there with the Foo Fighters. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not my favorite band, but I get why somebody would dig that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I used to be I was in a cover band a few years ago, and we would rotate who would pick a song, and I wasn't yet the singer. I had a little coup where I took over as the singer. Sorry, Andy. Um, Andy's cool. We're friends. He's a great guy, but he picked Ed Sheeran's the one Shape of You, the one that was like just all over the radio everywhere for like a
Yeah.
few years. And we didn't end up doing it, but I don't listen to that kind of stuff. I don't get into it.
Yeah.
But I was listening to it because, all right, well, he picked it, and I'm going to pick some fucking Soundgarden song next week. So, I'll get mine. Anyway, I came up with a mashup, and I mashed it up with Joan Jett's version of I Love Rock and Roll just to kind
Yeah.
of make it interesting. Because I discovered like mashups on
Mhm.
YouTube and just sort of like gotten really into that for a while. And I don't know. I think like if you really try, you can get into almost anything.
I
You
I
know what I
think
mean?
that's true. I
I don't know where
well,
I'm going.
it's interesting because I've gone on a similar journey with music, where I was very, very judgmental. I had a joke about Taylor Swift when I started comedy, and it wasn't good, and you know, and it really wasn't worthy because there's nothing wrong with Taylor Swift other than it's not music for guys like me. That doesn't mean it's not good. Um, and I kind of, after I started making things, went on a journey where I'm much less judgmental, but there are some things in comedy I'm still really judgmental of. And maybe I should get over it. Maybe you're right. You
Well,
know,
I'm not saying you have to get over it, but I do think you should keep in mind the other perspective. Like you should
sure.
always keep the audience's perspective in mind, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
I don't think you want to ever be the comic who does stuff only for other comics to enjoy. You're not gonna have any
I might be
audience.
that guy. I might want to be
Well,
that guy.
right, but you're not gonna get good gigs, and
Right, right,
people
right.
there's gonna how many comics are in town? If you get every one of them out
Oh,
to your show, what do you got? Like 50 people?
yeah,
Tops?
yeah. Not
Right.
even.
So I mean that's the ceiling of what you can do
Right,
as a comic, and
right,
that's not a good ceiling
right.
to have. So I just watched the new Kevin Hart special
Mm-hmm.
last night, and I was thinking about this because he's a comic that I think has kind of like found some like good rhythms to hit, and he's kind of
Hmm.
coasting a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of filler, and there's some good stuff in there for sure.
Hmm.
That's like really legitimately funny. But I think maybe I'm just like I've heard enough of him, but I think like a few
Yeah.
years ago I thought his shit was a lot funnier. I don't
Well,
know.
I'm
Anyway,
never gonna talk shit on Kevin Hart as like a performer. I think he's an outstanding performer. I think he's uh a incredible worker, but at the end of the day, um he chose the path of making movies, and being in, doing more of the big show business things that are going to make him more money, which there is nothing wrong with the comic taking that path, but I've never seen a comic do it whose stand-up didn't suffer for it.
Oh, interesting.
Because like
Like
those
who went into acting primarily for a while, or
yeah,
or at least a significant amount of their time and effort
well,
was in
hell,
that.
I mean, Steve Martin just quit doing stand-up. He
I don't know if I've seen his stand up is the funny thing.
Yeah, I mean, Adam Sandler stopped doing stand-up for a long time. I will say Steve Martin's a weird one because he's doing alt comedy in the 70s. So he's doing like anti jokes and stuff, and became the biggest the biggest comedian in the world, doing stuff that people still think is kind of avant-garde now, or at least, like 8 years ago, we're like, wow, this comic's doing some really edgy stuff. And it's not that it was any more edgy than what Steve Martin was doing. It's just been 40 years since he'd done it.
Yeah, I guess my point with Kevin Hart is like, he's sort of like, I don't know. I look at it and I think like, well, okay, I know this guy knows how to write some jokes,
Mm-hmm.
and I know this guy knows how to perform, and he's got every resource that you could possibly ask for in developing a stand-up special and making it as good as he gives a shit about it being. And clearly he's made some decisions still where he's like kind of decided like, no, I mean, I want the audience to react to this.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he's not just going after like the inside baseball crowd.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
I mean, and maybe that's just a pattern of a guy. This guy is like, he's been so set on like outward definitions of success for so long that's just what he does now. I don't know.
No, I think Kevin Hart's a fantastic comedian. I think, and I don't even think that doing TV or or movies or anything like that makes him inherently less funny. I think all that happens is he's not getting up on stage as often is the biggest thing. And
certainly this year, right?
Well, certainly this year, but even for I would say the past probably 2 or 3 specials, honestly, there have been slightly diminishing returns on his work. I don't even think, well, he's a combative guy. He might argue that, but I don't think, I think he's getting up on stage less, and he's comfortable. He is a very wealthy man who has a lot of security, who is clearly a workaholic, but has moved his efforts into another part of his life.
Right. Well, so I would add to that one thing. He's at a level of success and fame where he's got this star power, where if he's not getting up on stage every week or multiple times a week or whatever the threshold is to like stay like, you know, as in practice and in form as you want to be, he can coast right through that, because the audience just adores him.
That's true.
Because he's made them fucking like hurt on their sides from laughing so many times.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something you can't plan for, or like you can't write around that. You know, it's just going to be a different thing for a superstar. You know? I mean, to me, I think a lot of like comedy is like, or a lot of the interesting part to me of comedy from the outside is like, how does somebody like win over the audience to kind of go along with like their dumb story, you know, to go along with their long setup or whatever weird version of themselves they're putting out there. You know what I mean? And it's almost like it's less like joke writing sometimes, and it's like it almost seems like there's an acting piece to it, where you got to put some kind of persona out there for somebody to follow along, and then you fucking hit them with the punchline.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe I'm misrepresenting it because I'm not
no
in that world. I mean, you know,
there are comics who transition into acting because that's exactly what they do. And they're very good at it. There are comics who are like, say, Stephen Wright, who has a persona, but that persona is Stephen Wright. Like he's weird and unique, but that's because
he's naturally weird and unique.
Is weird and unique. And I mean, but you could say the same thing about rock stars, right? Like you could say the same thing about musicians.
Oh, that's absolutely what I do.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'm doing a version of Elvis Costello, or a version of Nick Cave, or something like that. You love Nick Cave? Or
I love Nick Cave.
Yeah, he's God, that was a fucking show.
Yeah.
Oh man, like dude, like so many. Yeah, weird, so many weird moments. Like he's like a
Hmm.
prophet up there. He's like he has that magic like
Hmm.
Connor to just put a spell on the audience. You
Yeah.
know,
But like
he's
I
not like Connor at all.
right.
Other than that,
Yeah.
but
Um
yeah, I'm always doing a version. I'm always doing a character when I'm
mhm.
performing vocally, and
Yeah.
it's something in between a version of myself, maybe some like a weird funhouse
Hmm.
fucked up version of myself, mixed with some imitation of some vocal style that has really like captured my attention. For a long time, it was Elvis Costello.
Yeah.
Like if you
Well,
listen to like chemistry or stuff like that off the record, it's a shameless Elvis Costello impersonation or Mary Lou. Um, and I don't know if I'm still doing that. I think I'm probably doing something a little bit more like myself, but it's definitely in there to agree that it's the stand's never going to come out now.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah. What about stage presence? Because you're talking about like the physical art, like the actual art. You're doing almost an acting performance. You're blending influences into your sound. But what about like when I initially asked the question, I was thinking of I Mick Jagger, as a stage actor, right?
oh he's oh sorry, I don't know, I'm not sure what the question was, but
Oh,
Mick
sorry.
Jagger,
I mean, is there? Look, I'm
he's a
never going to
pummel.
pretend I'm the best interviewer here.
Get your act together.
Right. No, Mick Jagger as a performer isn't just like the voice. He's doing some sort of grand character, the strutting, the way he dances. There's I don't know who he is. He's not like maybe a gonzo ringmaster or something. I don't know what he's doing. I don't know what he's channeling, but
I don't know what the fuck he's like, but I know this. He's one of the most imitated people
absolutely.
from as soon as he started to be out in the world on. I think I think we copped a lot of Mick Jagger moves. I think anybody in like the late 60s, 70s had a little bit of Mick Jagger in their stage persona in rock and roll.
Yeah.
But probably in like disco and pop and stuff like that too. And he's
Oh,
so he's so
Disco
fucking
took a
weird.
lot from Mick Jagger.
Like
Yeah.
I don't know what the fuck. Where did he get that like persona, that character from?
Like
I'm not the biggest Rolling Stones fan, believe it or not,
yeah.
but Mick Jagger is one of those unique personalities that it's just like, where the fuck did you come from?
Yeah.
It's like an
Well, it
alien
clearly
land.
became who he was. Like I think that's one of those like an Andrew Dice Clay thing where it's like the art begat the life. Uh, he became his stage persona.
I don't know enough about Andrew Dice Clay to
Oh,
get
he's just crazy. It was just like he
he's like a
did it.
90s like bro comic, right? Hey,
He's
good like
like
an
a bro
Italian
comic,
American.
but he wasn't a bro, but then he did the bro comedy routine and became one. And I
Oh man.
think Mick Jagger probably became a superstar because he was playing a character on stage, and then that character became who he was
Hmm.
in his life.
Yeah, interesting. I don't know enough about that era, like who he would have like sort of like latched on. I believe everything comes from something else.
Oh
You
yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean? And it may come from something mistranslated, or maybe like I think BB King. I read a really great BB King interview a while ago about like you grow up playing the stuff that you love, and you get it from somewhere else, and you will fuck it up,
Yeah.
and you'll play it wrong, and that becomes your style. You
Hmm.
know, you put your stink on it, and if you're sincere and you just keep doing it, and you do you, your influences are unavoidable. They're an
Yeah.
inescapable intrinsic part of you, and that's that process of synthesis and how everything continues. You know.
Yeah.
So
I mean I think you're absolutely right. And I don't think it just has to be like uh I think like the next step there is like, okay, I'm a comedian, I'm influenced by comedians, you're a musician, you're influenced by other musicians. Can I be influenced by the things I read? Can I be influenced by the music I listen? I definitely, I can tell you everything about my personality and who I am was completely shaped by punk rock, you know, by the music I listened to when I was 17, 18 years old. Um, turn me into who I am. It's probably as big an influence on my comedy as any comedian. Do you feel like you have, you know, similar situations there?
Um, where I have everything attributable to like a short list of influences.
Well, no.
Um,
But I mean, do you think you're influenced
Probably yes.
by things other than just music?
Yeah. So I mean, I think yes. I think for me, some of the things that make me who I am as a musician and a performer and a songwriter are things about how I came to do it. So they're more
Mhm.
about the practice of the art. So a couple examples. I was a band nerd when I was a kid. I took piano lessons for a few years. It was all about the tenor saxophone in high school. And I played guitar from middle school on. And it was great. But I probably spent a lot more time with the saxophone in my hands than guitar until I didn't have access to the school's tenor saxophone after senior year. So I I came at it from a background richer in music theory and in practice and rehearsal and in sort of maybe not adhering to, but at least being aware of sort of an external definition of playing it right or not, and a bit more emphasis on technique than a lot of like local like rock people certainly would
Yeah.
have. So those are all things about how I approach it that I'm never gonna unlearn the Mixolydian scale. You know what I
Right.
mean? I'm always gonna know what a 2-5-1 change sounds like, stuff like that. And another thing, a second thing that is a little bit weird about me is I didn't play any bands until I moved out here for a job after college, and
Mhm.
I started a cover band with my coworkers, like a
Yeah.
bunch of fucking engineers, and we had the nerdiest fucking like cover band in town. And we did that for a little while. And after a while, you know, my brother was been in bands and he's been writing songs and stuff like, you know, I could write some songs. I'd kind of taken like furtive steps towards it, but I did more of it. And I decided that was a really fulfilling, you know, creative thing to do, even if I don't have as much output ever as I think I ought to.
Hmm.
And so anyway, so I came at it with like a healthy dose of like imposter syndrome as like this like
Yeah.
mid-20s adult software engineer playing
Right.
in a band, and a little bit of it is like I come in and I'm like, well shit, I can do this. I could have done this the whole time.
Hmm.
I've got the technical stuff covered. What is everybody else doing? And the weird thing to me is a lot of people approach it with um, a much less sort of like they're not interested in technical details. Whereas
Hmm.
like I don't think it's the only thing I care about, but I'm definitely interested in like, well, what key is this in? Are you always doing everything with power chords, or do you do like weird altered voicings? Do you play around with different instruments, or is it all guitar? Is it
Hmm.
all like in blues rock guitar? A big pattern you see a lot of is the pentatonic scale,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do nothing but pentatonic scale without knowing what it is because it's a part of the vocabulary. But me coming at it with a little bit of music theory, and I bet Ferret would sort of like speak
Hmm.
this language and know what I'm talking about. Um, I can't do anything that's just pentatonic scale because it's too much of a cliche pattern to me.
Right.
Whereas somebody that doesn't know what that is, it's not a thought, it's not even words that would even enter their head, right?
Right.
So I think that, long story short, I think some of the things that make me who I am as a performer and a songwriter and stuff like that are they're more related to my experience playing music throughout my life
Hmm.
and being a little bit of a nerd, you know.
Yeah. Than other musicians like like the people you enjoy aren't as much as how you came into music yourself.
Yeah, well, I mean, some of them. I think some of the people I enjoy, they might know that, they might not.
Yeah.
I think if you put enough time and effort into it, sometimes you converge on the same things, coming at it
Oh
from different
yeah.
perspectives. You
Well,
know, like
we were talking about Modest Mouse earlier, and Isaac Brock doesn't know the names of a single chord on
oh,
his
that's
guitar.
cool. I envy that a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because you can't. Hey, my battery's gonna die soon, so
Oh, okay.
just
Yeah,
letting you
we
know.
should wrap up anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, this has been a long one. I bet.
Yeah. I think. Well, I thought the timer was going to go off again, and then it didn't. So.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh well, that's cool. It
all
was
right.
a good chat.
Yeah, it was a good chat, man. I appreciate talking to you. You're a very insightful guy. We'll throw on this. Shoot me the song, and I'll throw it on to the end.
I
Uh,
sent you a demo a while back. It's not a demo. It's pretty close to done. It's not mastered, but if you want to try Hangover Cure, that one I sent you,
absolutely.
that's probably going to be the next thing I release after. Maybe there'll be a mix tweak, but certainly mastering. It's
Um,
called Hangover Cure. Features yours truly, Emily Gould on drums, Colin Estes and Aaron Moore contributed some guitar and vocals. And yeah, it's a shameless Clash ripoff, I guess.
yeah, yeah. All right, man.
And a shameless Music Man ripoff.
Yes, a shameless Music Man ripoff. Follow Nathan on social media and stuff. Does Rough Age has a mailing list, right?
We do. I don't use it a lot, which is maybe an enticement. Sign up because you won't get that much email. But I do a mailing list. I'm on Facebook. You can check out roughagemusic.com. I've got lots of videos on there, and you can find me on pretty much any streaming service.
Yeah.
Just look up Rough Age Music. Rough Age is also very important, but is a techno artist.
All right, guys. I did my plugs at the beginning. I'm not going to do them now. Follow my stuff. Thanks for being on, Nathan. I appreciate
It's
you.
great talking with you, man. Like
Yeah,
that was a lot of fun.
it's always good talking to you, man.
I always enjoy your guests too, like Andrea and Ferret and John and all these guys.
Yeah, thanks, man. All right, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
See ya.
All right, go make stuff, guys.